So just checking in with you real quickly in front of everybody. Some possible priorities for the day, in addition to checking in, are probably at least a couple of student-led constellations.
Yep.
Would be important. I think there's interest in your internal family system stuff. And then that one request I made about what other people might want to know if they want to get more deeply into organizational work. And then you can check in with the group. And then just in terms of reflecting on yesterday, I have one sort of insight I want to share with the group, but however you decide to start the day. Turn it over to Volker, everybody.
Should we shut the door now?
Yeah, and I'll turn off the
fan
for now.
Sorry, directly across.
How far away from Christina is
Okay, that's good checking. How about the weather report? Your current internal state would be translated to a weather report. What would it be? And whoever starts gets to pick who goes next.
Pretty sunny.
Sunny?
Yeah.
Awesome.
It was sunny today. I had a nice warm reunion last night with some old friends, so felt pretty good about that. Anything else?
Who goes next?
Okay, Irina.
this time of day, there's like a fog rolling over below the sun, because I woke up really early, and so it's like when you look at the sky, the clarity is there, but it's a little fudged through the clouds. They're not really thick, but you can still see the clarity through there, but it's there, like the shapes. Yeah. And maybe windy. Maybe. Yeah.
But you haven't
Really
stepped outside.
good.
But
I
you
feel
haven't
like I
stepped
need
out.
a video snippet.
Yeah,
Yeah. When the sky
Like a
is
summer day.
northwest.
You're talking about a regular summer day.
On Marin, on the Marin headlands,
Marin
right?
headlands.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's
Okay, we gotcha. Who goes next?
Jean-Mi.
Well, it's partly clouds, but not unpleasantly so, and it's drifting clouds. They're moving nicely. And the wind hasn't come up yet. And there's some possible precipitation on the far horizon. Yeah.
Slightly overcast and it burns off.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's
How's your date?
But told in a weather report.
In terms of the weather report.
Yeah,
It's an early spring day.
day. It's a little overcast, kind of hazy.
Who knows how the day turns out?
It could break out. The sun could break out later in the afternoon. It's kind of.
Feels sunny. I don't know, it just looks like a beautiful day. There's like high clouds, and speaking with the metaphor, I feel great. I slept more than I have in months. I was talking to Irina on the way over to Pennsylvania, but yeah, I mean it was really impactful for me to facilitate with you yesterday.
I want to hear more. We'll do that after the check-in.
Okay, so not part of the check-in. You just wanted weather. Okay.
No, because that's worth.
Um, uh, sunny summer day, Bay Area summer day, where the visibility is just like, holy crap, the visibility you can just see forever, which we don't get a lot, but you know, when you do, it's like Mount Tam over on the other side of the bay is just crystal clear, and there's a bit of a breeze and sparkle, and it makes you kind of feel alive and energized and wanting to kind of dive into it a bit. It's a good day. Good weather day. And you, how's your weather, Mr. Funk?
Oh, it reminds me of sailing out to the Farallones. So it's early in the morning. The marine layer is thick. No sun yet. But it's going to be a glorious day, and the wind is up. Awesome for sailing. Good sailing day. Cool. So, what was it like?
Well,
So let me just, maybe as a preface, I've never done that before.
I had a student.
Yes. So, because co-facilitating implies a level of sharing,
Yes.
I've never actually gave myself to that idea when there was such an obvious.
I feel that it is spirit led, and it just it's like there's too many things to express. But so there's a pattern in my family of women not being able to lean on men or men being unavailable to be leaned on.
Oh my God. Okay.
Oh, I can't even tell you. Like my system has been like shifting all night.
Oh my God.
And also there's the invitation, to let my field get a lot bigger, which it's sort of like just waiting for that. Oh yeah, I can do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I know for you it's just like what.
I know.
But for me it was like, oh boy, there's a lot of room here. That was just awesome.
We all do that. Like I do that every day. I find myself like, oh, this is what it means to do.
Yeah, no, I mean I've had some experiences like that before. But yeah, it's just I sort of felt like I was under your wing. It was a lot of room for me to do things. A lot of permission and welcome and support. So I didn't. I mean, it felt like being mentored in a way, and then also, as I said, with the personal and family things. There's so I really feel grateful to you and to Spirit, because that was something that I really needed to shift a lot of things in. So
Would you recommend it?
co-facilitating?
Yeah.
Depends how ready they are for change, but I guess it depends what. For me, it was very specifically just a huge gift.
How were you with my tree? With my
Oh, I was fine. I felt perfectly ready to do that. I mean, I signed up for it, right? I jumped in. So I didn't feel like you pushed me at all. I felt like you could have pushed me harder, actually. 'Cause I was still not sure like how much I should do or how to do it. Are we taking turns? Is it just do whatever? So
It
I
says
was
do whatever.
yeah. See, but I was still working that out, but that was really okay for me. So yeah, I would recommend it if anybody wants to.
Like my experience was maybe that wasn't really, or my experience was more than might have been obvious on the outside. That I always felt you. I knew where you were. Like in co-facilitating, that is like absolutely instrumental. That's the foundation. And every so often it happens that someone disappears. Like we get triggered or unresourceful, and then literally in the co-facilitation space, the other person disappears. And you never disappeared. I knew where you were, and you may have been a little slow, and I was tracking time and nudging you, and it was not under the best of circumstances. I would have wished I could have let you find that edge without me nudging so. But I knew where you were.
I would say if you ever want to do like a co-facilitator training, like if you're interested, I want to do it again. I realized I've had my turn for this, but yeah, because I also felt like I could lean into that a lot more.
And it was totally fascinating to me how we both got hot at the same time.
I'm still on energy now.
That was like how quickly that translated. It's like, okay, now we're doing it. I know we're doing it because I'm getting hot and we're doing it. Yeah. Awesome. Cool. So maybe we'll try that again with somebody else. Because there's some sourcing that happens that's a little. I mean, we're doing it all the time. I mean, this is how we learn. Yeah. I mean, you're calibrating my nervous system or Leslie's nervous system all the time as part of the learning, and we're not really conscious that that's happening, but that's where a lot of the learning happens.
There's a way in which it didn't feel that different. I mean, I'm expressing this well. It still felt like I was facilitating the way I normally would, but like in partnership. So there's still sensing, whatever you want to call it. I call it using intuition, or listening to the divine. So I'm still doing that, but it's with this awareness of partnership.
We're sharing. It tells me there's a shared something going on, and in a certain way, energetically, I do that. Even when I'm just supporting, and somebody else is just. We're all supporting each other doing it. But to make it so explicit, just amps it up some.
Yeah.
Like as I said, it never occurred to me before. So I was a little curious. So
Awesome.
how that landed. Cool.
You're not named my resistance. That's always a good idea.
Just
There's something really uncomfortable about it for me.
Oh, may I name it? It requires a level of letting go. Controlling creating safe space. Like co-leading is like a radical.
Yeah.
No. Let's talk about this.
Yeah, sure.
So the coin of the realm is available at tension. I don't know, is it Harry Palmer? Harry Palmer makes the distinction between fixed attention and available attention. So fixed attention is a little bit like on your computer, whatever the operating system takes up.
So you dedicated.
It's dedicated. Yeah, it's running. Like fixed attention is dedicated to making the computer run in the first place. And available attention is the other part of the memory that's available, to run Word on the browser or watch a video. And clearly, the more available attention you have, the more you can choose in the moment what to do. When you run a really old computer, and you just upgraded the operating system once too often. Suddenly, most of the available memory is required to run the operating system, and when you click on Word, you might as well have a cigarette break. Because there's not a lot of available attention to start up Word. And that's probably that's a reasonable metaphor for what happens with our own attention and how much attention is dedicated to working hard to stay safe. I mean, our operating system is sort of the equivalent of just staying safe. Am I looking over my shoulder? How hypervigilant am I? Constantly looking over my shoulder. I'm scared that bad stuff happens all the time. I mean, that's the definition of trauma. And we all carry some level of childhood trauma. I mean, I have not, maybe that's because of my occupation, but I haven't met anybody without childhood trauma. This is just what it means to be human. We were raised by humans. We were imperfect.
Who were themselves traumatized.
Who themselves are like trauma. Like both my parents grew up during the Second World War. My mom grew up in bomb shelters. By the time she was 3, the trip to the bomb shelter was just an everyday occurrence. She made it out amazing well. So that's just what it means to be human. We all have fixed attention. And fundamentally, what facilitating requires is available attention. So that's the bigness. And with it, an ability to drop into the present moment and allow information to arise. So as a facilitator, I get really good at not knowing. I have to be safe, actually. I am cultivating internal safety to not know. If I can let go of knowing, then I'm obviously not having any fixed attention, checking for patterns and well-known risks. However unlikely they may be, there's a risk. I can drop into the present moment and not know and allow information to rise, the closer I'm connected. And my personal practice and ambition is to be a facilitator in my life, every moment. That would be awesome. It's a long way to go, but that would be awesome. And that's literally my everyday quest.
Where does the evil practice come from?
Out of the moment, out of the not knowing.
Is it in your body?
That's a, so gut is about touch. Heart is about connection. And the head is about the inside. And in constellations, inside doesn't matter. Well, I mean,
Maybe later.
I'm a model geek. Exactly, yes. I love to be honest. I met with a buddy last night over a burger and we geeked out on sort of the weirdness of the field. He did a similar workshop. That was awesome. But there was complete entertainment. There's no action there. Yeah? So we're connecting with the field, that's to the heart, and then the action arises out of that. It's very somatic. And I mean, just sort of as context, I got introduced to Constellation in 2000. I probably did 30 weekend workshops before I started my training in 2002 with the like I was workshop all the time. So 6 workshops a year, yeah, 2 or 3 years, somewhere around there, 20, 30 workshops. That is my training.
For Constellation.
For Constellation.
Wow.
And then I did my training.
What would you have considered all of those workshops not training?
I didn't, at the time, didn't matter. I just wanted to feel better.
Okay.
I just wanted to feel. I mean, that was just because.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't doing so well. So I wanted help.
Okay. Got it.
Was it clients groups or like learning?
Oh no.
Client
Got it. That's why I was
public workshops.
got it. I was thinking there were like 30 weekends of like training.
Open public workshops.
Got it.
And most of them I just showed up to be a representative. That was magic. And I did training for a year, maybe 6 weekends. And boy, when I was invited to facilitate, my nervous system crashed. Like computer crash, blue screen, nobody home. Like, I'm not exaggerating. There was no available attention. Like, I was so unsafe to facilitate a Constellation and be with somebody else's heart. That was not even on the menu. I mean, Gabrielle tried that. It wasn't like, I wasn't even in the room. And then it was another 5 years. I took NLP. That was a lot of trauma. NLP Melinda's trauma. And after that training, I slowly started to be actually available and start to facilitate, I don't know, 7 years later. And it took another 2 or 3 years of fumbling around before I could hold still in front of the room. I mean, this is hard work.
What helped you to keep doing it?
Releasing more and more of the fixed attention. It just took me away on the same available attention to start up work with the browser. Initially, the operating system just took it all up. There was no browser to start. And so chipping away and just knowing that that's what we do. We're all slowly decreasing our fixed attention until there's enough memory to actually do something useful. And for the longest time, I did not have enough available attention to do something useful. Thank God. Yeah. I mean, and you all are doing way better than I did. Like, I can tell from just checking in, it's like you're miles ahead. So yeah, the exercise yesterday, that's like prying the door open and yeah, checking into a different river.
I feel like I need a lot of prep work before that.
Oh no, absolutely. Yeah. Because I could use faith. And on the outside, I may have been just a moment ahead of you, and you sort of realized, like, oh yeah, I was about to. Yeah, that happened 2 or 3 times. But you were there. You knew where you were.
In theory, you in facilitating Constellation, I have this like deer in your headlight moment.
Yes.
I don't know, like it feels like you're stalling. Is that a sign that you're not in the like you fixed you basically all your attention is fixed because you
So the oh fuck moment,
yeah.
that is you having attention, yeah, on your own life, on your history. That's your attention on
I'm
history.
failing or
And therefore realizing like, what's going on? And I'm looking at my history. I'm not actually looking at.
so you yeah, at that moment you check out all the constellations and you think about yourself.
That's your own. That is now you're in touch with managing your own sense of safety. That's what we that's what we all do. Like that's
Somebody needs to say something.
that's stuff.
Okay.
But that's what the training is about. Fundamental.
Yeah.
That's what we do. We get ourselves into that oh fuck moment often enough. Do not care.
Mm-hmm.
To realize, oh wow, I can breathe through this. And then yeah, no, I'm here.
Mm.
And the I'm here, that's what we call it. And then the constellation is just you stop worrying that you don't know. Something's gonna happen, I have no idea what, and I trust that something's gonna arise in me that's gonna be useful. And sometimes that is there's no work we can do here. Let's just sit back down and do a different constellation. And when I'm clear, then that's in service of my client. And it's not a problem. I don't have any attachment. Like, okay, I can't help. Okay. Or whatever other worst case scenarios we might have. But okay. And that's what everybody else is paying attention to, or what creates safety in the space is we check with the person in front of the room if they are safe. And then we know that we're safe. That's so the best way that I can express like what it means to hold the space and to create safety in the space so that other people can drop into their most vulnerable and unsafe places and are willing to. Is that a
Right.
Yes. And knowing that it's okay.
Being what is.
Dealing with what is, and we all gonna survive. Because some part of our nervous system, in the fixed attention, some part of our nervous system telling us that we're about to die. Over and over and over. That's what fixed attention is. We're dropping into our fixed attention with someone who's safe. And that's a contradiction that helps the nervous system to unfreeze some of it and make it available. To realize that, oh, okay, maybe I'm not about to die. Fair enough. Okay. What else can I do? I mean, once it's freed up, it's not a big deal. But while it's fixed, it's a death threat. An ongoing, continuous death threat. You recognize for yourself. And that's what we're doing. And fundamentally, whether that's constellation or therapy or it doesn't matter. A lot of people get that out of being here. That's dropping into the unknown, right at the edge of safety zone, and having some confidence that there's going to be another line and we're going to survive. Like, to me, improv theater is.
There's so many theater people in this room, so.
My nervous system freaks out like through the roof.
Yeah.
It's
As an attendee or as a
doer,
as a
being in
doer,
it.
you're doing it.
Then just like
Yeah.
in that context, to drop into the unknown with somebody else in front of other people.
The stakes are a little lower though, because in constellations you have somebody's vulnerability in front of you, and you don't want to like screw them up. I mean, you could mess up in front of an audience and then kind of fix it.
You can also say
It's sort of like emotional open heart surgery. You know, it doesn't go so well to then, you know, suddenly have the surgeon have a moment of like, oh, you fucked, you know. It's like, you know,
Don't get in trouble.
you know, it's like, I need a moment here. Can someone,
Oh, they better have it. They better have it.
right,
A way of doing it
right?
because we're human.
yeah.
Well, that's why, you know, like surgeons tend to be like
Robots.
and massively narcissistic, arrogant robots, because they have like they're very good at just like
Shutting it down.
Shutting everything down.
Yeah.
No, there's an absolute.
yeah.
I admire Cheryl.
I have a question that may be a little different than this topic. Is it okay to go there? Okay. About the field, and you said it just a little while ago about it being magic. And I mean, I agree that it is. It feels that way. And a few times I have done constellations with, I kind of pull in representatives that are just my friends or people I know, kind of more just to show them what constellations is than anything else, you know? And as I'm trying to kind of direct the representatives, more than once they say, when it's kind of over and they see what it is, how am I supposed to know what to do? Is this supposed to be magic? And the word magic keeps coming up.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, clearly this is a facilitator stance issue. Somehow I need to like convey to these people that have no idea what we're doing, you know, just to like follow their intuition and follow their gut and their heart, you know, and not like think things up. But in the beginning, like, how do you sort of endow a new representative to understand how to work in the field?
Yes. That is one of my greatest pleasures. One of the contexts that I do a lot of constellations in is in this very rarefied spreadsheet honcho consulting world. These are like analytic people through the roof. They live from here on up, and they are so masterful when they think about companies and markets and products and how to make money and organize businesses. And then I put them into a circle and I give them a piece of paper and I tell them to just follow their gut. And they look at me, and they look at me like if you're in the headline, they think like, you are crazy. Like my entire sense of self is based on what I know. And you're telling me not to know.
Mm.
And 30 seconds later, they just do it.
So the magic happens.
And then I got, like initially, I left them with the magic happens, and the magic was all attached to me. They didn't know what the field was. They thought it had something to do with me. So we needed to come up with an exercise where they were using index cards, and it was them sourcing it.
Could you do that exercise with us?
Sure. I mean, triads.
I think
No,
intro
no, they-
exercises for groups that are brand new to this work are very valuable for all of us.
Mhm.
Ways to help enculturate people to this work. So if you
Yeah.
have something concrete, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's doing, I tell them to create an Instagram for themselves and their clients and to put their fingers on it. And then they're doing it and they get some information and they're, 15 minutes later, it's like, this was the best thing ever. I had no idea.
So basically you're creating a context for them to get pretty immediate contact with their own intuitive capacities.
So I avoid the word intuition entirely because for these people,
Okay,
that's
gut.
like,
Yeah.
that's like
Yeah.
Antichrist territory.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Gut.
that's not
Using
what they
gut.
do.
Gut.
Right.
Gut, they're okay with.
So that's where I go back to the language of a different way of knowing.
Okay.
They know, they
Like
have
knowing.
one way of knowing,
Yeah.
and they have, and I acknowledge them and call it out for them all the time about how damn brilliant they are in that particular way of knowing.
How damn what?
Brilliant.
Brilliant, yeah.
Like, Harvard trained brilliance, MIT, these are Ivy League, old boy network, weird stuff. Yeah. To the
Skull and
hilt.
bones.
Yeah. This is fraternity material. They all know their fraternity.
So, I mean, what I'm hearing is it's really in their confidence in you. And it's not about them understanding the field. Like sometimes because they say why. How does this, how am I supposed to?
I thought that immediately.
Yeah. and so I'm like, well, how do I explain it? It's just the field that you have to feel. And they're like,
Oh, no,
I don't
no.
know what that means,
Oh,
And
geez.
I'm like, I don't know how to explain it.
So the metaphor I use with them is there are one or two metaphors. Like, what's gravity? Oh, it's fit, drop it to the floor. Okay, we can calculate it. It's predictable. It happens all the time. We have high confidence that gravity works. How does it work? Turns out nobody knows. You ask a theoretical physicist, and they still have an argument like how gravity works. Like, that's the same here. We have a field. Yeah, it works all the time. We have really high confidence that it works.
All gravity. Sorry, I don't mean to kick out or anything. All gravity is just warping space-time. That's all.
What does that mean?
Exactly.
I mean, that's just.
You're just extending.
Yeah.
No,
the frame of not knowing.
No.
There's not a physicist on the world that knows how gravity works.
So you would say to them to feel the field. That is something you would say.
Well, actually, or something like the magnetic field.
The what field?
Magnetic field.
Oh.
We're surrounded by it. I can't tell. Where's north? I have no idea.
Yeah.
You use some iron filings.
I use that metaphor. I actually, literally, that's the metaphor I use.
You can even just say it's like using your phone or you know, a car. I don't know how the hell it works, but I can use it.
Here's that's the analogy I use. I like.
But that's an object, you know, that you hold in your hand.
And it's
But you like
technical,
to use it the same way.
but with the magnetic field,
Yeah. I mean, the analogy I use. I said, think of a piece of cardboard with magnets underneath it in various locations, and then you take iron filings and you throw it across the cardboard, and the iron filings bunch up where the magnets are under the cardboard. I said, family constellations is like using human beings as iron filings to illuminate the patterns in a system that you're looking at.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yes. How does the magnetic field work? I don't know. That's the same thing here. There's a field. I've done it thousands of times. It works. I'm done.
And the other thing is, like, people might not get it or be comfortable with it, and it's not really your job. I mean, you can try, but
I do think there's a little bit of like
No, some reassurance. The
get them
question
in.
arises.
Like
You
if
have
somebody
to have
doesn't
an
know,
answer.
you can't expect them to know.
Yeah,
I think you have a trust, like you've done it 1,000 times, you know it works. We don't have necessarily that trust. Maybe that's, I'm thinking
Yeah,
maybe they
that's
picking
fine.
up on that and they picking up on your own, like, oh shit, is it gonna work? Is it gonna work?
Sure, that could be part of it too. But I also think like it's something we have to work through with new people.
Yeah.
So my general experiences, the less I work through it, and the quicker I work, the better.
Do you ever start a constellation thinking like, oh, we're just gonna jump into it and they're gonna feel it, and they just do it like wrong? Just okay, that happened to me last night. Because they knew each other and they just started, you know, acting with each other, and I was
Oh.
like, must be my stance.
No, that's them being safe.
Yeah.
So
So how do you
pieces
diffuse
of
that?
paper.
We did that. Yeah.
Blind, yeah?
Blind.
Mhm.
I mean, with newbies, only blind.
But they just didn't know what to do.
That's fair. So I just and every so often, I mean, believe me, they try. so you just do what I did yesterday. You step really close and say like, okay, that's not it yet. Slow down and drop it.
Okay.
And whatever, like, however they hear those words, I don't know how the brain makes sense of this instruction, but when I step really close, so they can't escape my clarity.
Mm-hmm.
That was like yesterday, intruding with you guys, yeah? Or when I said, like, this is how I, you know, when representatives get wonky, this is how I deal with it. And that's the same thing. I step into their space, and then I give them some wonky instruction that really doesn't make any sense. Like, slow down and drop in. Like, how California can you catch?
Because I was thinking that sounded a lot more clear than feel the field.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can't use the feel word. You know?
Yeah, no, at that point, that language doesn't help.
Yeah.
Like feel the field or trust your intuition, that doesn't work.
Do
But
you,
I just didn't know what else to say.
yeah.
Oh, fair enough.
Do you feel like they need to correct representative, like when you stepped in, when they're doing something and your sense is that they are off?
Yeah.
And then you step in and you do this procedure where you basically, like you said, you gotta interject your own feeling, like sense clarity, and then they still doing some. Well, I guess at that point it might be the correction that's needed.
Yeah, I have not, like,
But
I have
I've
been
seen
in
some
workshops where
Mhm.
representatives got exchanged.
exchange, yeah,
Yeah,
and
when
then
people actually
yeah,
said,
and
like,
then you're
just
like,
sit
well,
down and have
just-
somebody else come
yeah.
here, and we're not dealing with it. So I've
Mhm.
seen that in other contexts and in
But for you-
conferences where it was wide open. I never had to do that.
once you do this move, it usually works.
Yes. So that is an extreme measure. That's sort of the last resort,
Replacement.
the replacement.
Seems a little shaming. But
Yeah, it
Yeah.
has all that weirdness where like
Right.
now you're
Yeah.
like
you
this
failed
is-
at this.
It is-
At this thing I cannot define. You have failed at it, however.
Yeah, exactly.
You're like, that is-
Talk about digging up perennials. mental double binds,
God.
right?
And then
Like,
the
I'm
next person is
damned if I do, damned if I don't kind of pattern, right?
Yeah.
There's
Yeah,
some
so-
cleanup. Like you can't do that without cleaning up after.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So that is last resort, and thank God I
Yeah.
had never.
When Dan Booth Cohen really reminded me about this a number of years ago, he said, sometimes it has to happen, but you want to really keep the number of times where you have to exclude someone to the absolute minimum, have to, for the safety of the group, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
You really want to think a billion times before your move has to be
I
exclusion.
suffer through a lot of bad reputation before I go there.
Because it affects the whole group, not just the individual.
Yeah.
They see and experience the exclusion.
And I supplement. I just start. I mean, I have had Constellation.
It does happen, but
Fundamentally ignored their representative
well, there's
in a
that.
really
Yeah.
friendly way.
You fundamentally what?
Ignored.
Ignore the rep.
You know, they gave me feedback about what it's like to be there, and I don't like that. And I gave them a sentence that has a completely different content, and it moved the Constellation, and they were not in touch. So I've done some of that. We're just essentially, I step into their place and have information arrive from there and treat everybody like so.
Yeah.
But that's so
Basically,
that is favorable over ask him to sit down.
And there's something about stance here about unless I have overwhelming evidence, I'm holding the spaces if I trust the representatives and what they bring forward.
Yes.
And if instead you have a stance of reps are unreliable and unpredictable, and I might have to assert a lot of control, then that's what's going to happen. So you really want to be checking in with your internal stance about, are reps reliable? Are reps safe for you as the facilitator?
Yes.
All that sort of stuff.
They completely are.
So-
For me, I mean, even with the spreadsheet honchos, and I know they're these hyper intellectual geeks, and whatever arises, that's part of the field, and I go with it. And then I need multiple instances to realize, like, oh, this is not reliable. Okay, now I need to supplement, or I need to source different information because they're too scared being a representative. That's fundamentally it. And it's like, okay, so this person isn't very safe to have an experience that they can't explain. That's fair. I mean, that's a pretty big ask. You know, someone has a piece of paper in their pocket, and suddenly I don't, or I like or don't like the person, but that's like, okay. Yeah.
I just heard you say too, you may give them a sentence. And I hadn't really thought of it that way, but like that could also be sort of a directive. Like say this sentence and then they're kind of dropping in more to, you're guiding them more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we're doing that as facilitators anyway. The people in their role are caught up in, I don't trust them, or it's not safe, or whatever emotional quality there is, and it's unpleasant because that's why we do constellations. And we give them sentences that shifts their experience. And they're getting closer to what's actually available in this space. Like, I like you, or I'm open, or I see you. And then, you know, the experience follows. So sentences have that effect anyway, where we guide people closer into a primary emotion and their primary experience.
That's what we've talked about here before, using sentences to help the representatives drop into the
It makes a lot
primary.
of sense.
Yeah.
And when, I mean, fundamentally, as a facilitator, being in available attention is the same as being in my primary emotion. That's different language for exactly the same experience. And that's a cultivation, it's a practice, it's an ongoing process. It's not, you know, that's not. No radical change there. It's a very continuous analog process.
And it's just like it's the practice of being open, available, not protected.
and knowing for myself the difference.
Would it be the same as being like present?
And I have a practice. Every morning I wake up and I give myself a presence score between 1 and 10.
I love that.
Just as a morning ritual, just to acknowledge what's so. And then I'm like, okay, this is my starting point. And it can change, and I'm open. It isn't, I'm not. But it's a practice to just check. So I know.
And you try to be present throughout the day.
Life gets a lot more fun when I'm present.
Yeah.
And I'm not continuous tracking my own doing. That's not a lot of fun. So living in available intention. Oh, like that is just awesome. I can highly recommend it when it happens. And in a weird way, my experience is like the laws of the universe change when you're present.
Laws change.
I don't. I just
like
want
it.
to be grandiose. It's like something fundamentally changes.
All right.
And it's hard to explain.
Synchronicity arises.
All of a sudden, weird shit happens. It's like, okay.
Now, how can I control this? Make it happen like this more often. And then you're back. It's an eternal loop.
And your presence score goes down.
It's right to internal family systems.
How can I get a hold of the dial that turns on and off surrender?
That's a great way to put it.
All right, I'm watching time. I think we're good on this stuff. We've built this stuff.
Okay.
Am I right? Are we good here?
Yeah.
So let's take a look at what we did or didn't cover, and then make some decision about what we want to do the rest of the day. Blended constellations and how that relates to contract. So we did a little bit of a transition yesterday, that noticing of we have a tetralemma and then we bring it in the family. That's kind of how we blend constellations and move from one to the other when we have permission.
By contracting, you just mean what the agreement is with the client.
Yes, a contract is an explicit agreement. That's sort of an organizational development term.
But they've heard you use it here in the family context with your client.
Yes.
What's the implicit and the explicit
In a
contract?
therapeutic context, there's a fair amount of implicit agreement about what we're up to.
Right.
In the business context, we don't. The client has no idea what they're agreeing to, and therefore we need to make it explicit just to be respectful. We can't surprise them with some magic superpower. We actually need to try some way, being honest about what's going to happen, and it's going to be emotional, it's going to be uncomfortable, and you're going to be glad you did it, kind of thing.
This would be a conversation you have with your CEOs.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, executive coaching. Yeah, I mean, in any kind of coaching context, you create a coaching agreement, and that may include like, we're going to talk about your family. Is that okay? No, I'm not talking about family. I want to just do time management. Okay. I mean, then that's what we're doing in coaching. So I check. Otherwise, they get, you can't hijack them. Tribal and other systems. So we did a little bit on self-organization and sort of leaderful behavior in self-organizing context. How are we doing with the tribal system? Does that point in that direction? Because that's what tribes are doing. Like what you're working out in your study group
Oh, okay.
is pretty tribal.
Oh, I'm just really thinking more about the patriarchal versus matriarchal systems
Uh-huh.
that I run into in the Indian Native American tribes.
Oh my God, yeah.
So that's kind of what I'm thinking about here, and it gives us the power sharing and the feeling of you can lean on the opposite gender in a completely supportive way, but there's rules and restrictions against participation by women that are so intense in the tribal world where I live.
Yeah.
And I sometimes I just think I want to run screaming away from Taos
Yes.
because of it.
Why don't you?
There's a lot of gray-haired white people that look like me who are all there wondering what I'm up to, and I'm like, well, I don't know. I don't know if I have anything for you, but maybe I do. So yeah, good question.
That is their tribal culture.
Hmm. Yeah.
And you're polarizing against it.
No, I'm listening to radio shows where they're coming forward themselves and wanting to change it. I'm
Yeah.
not the only one
No.
doing that. Yeah, so I'm in
Thank
this
God,
I'm
and
in this
the-
little trickle that's going into the stream and trying to affect the stream.
Yes.
Right.
That is a great metaphor.
Yeah.
So how can you fully live into the trickle
Yeah.
and
Trickle down emotions.
the trickle down emotion economy
Yeah.
and the time that's going to take
Yeah.
as long as it stays a trickle.
Yeah. Right.
Feels a lot like what.
So some acknowledging of what is
Hmm.
and actually allowing to
Yeah.
give it trickle time.
Yeah.
It's gonna be frustrating.
Uh-huh.
And for you, it's gonna go way too slow.
Yeah.
That's what you signed up for.
Yeah.
I mean, when I work with organizations,
Yeah.
it's going way slower than I would like. And there is no shortcut. I like as much as I
You
bang my
decide that you
head.
can live with a trickle or not.
Yes, that's yes,
Can I be happy in a trickle?
yes.
Mhm.
That's the foundational question.
Yeah.
And I'm happy in my trickle in
Yeah.
the context of organizations.
Yeah.
They're ocean liners, and in my sense,
Yeah.
they're toxic environments to live in.
Mm.
Like I would not want a corporate job.
Mm-hmm.
I would die in that environment.
Yeah.
So I'm on the outside and I'm part of a trickle. I'm okay. And I don't blame the organization for being an ocean.
Mm. It's all it knows how to be.
It's not up to me. Nobody asked me. The
No.
organization will change at its own time, and nobody asked me. And my opinion literally does not matter.
Well, they did ask you by hiring you.
Right.
Yeah. And I trickle.
Uh-huh.
I have to be okay with that. If that's not enough for me, I'm setting myself up for continuous frustration. And why would I do that? That's really a miserable place to be.
Mm.
And if that's unbearable, I have to go somewhere else. So while you're in task, or just slow the fuck down and let them move at their own time.
Mm-hmm.
And have some confidence and ownership of your voice in the process. You don't have to play small. And then the people who want to play differently will find you.
Yeah.
But that's so outside of your control.
Uh-huh.
You can't make that about yourself. I have that conversation with myself all the time. This is
Yeah.
not,
Right.
this doesn't end.
Mhm.
Yeah, which organization finds me and how are they inviting me? And,
Yeah.
are they cool enough and enlightened enough? And it's like, no.
I'm not the voice on the mountain, but I am on some small hill. Like trying to just be authentic
Exactly.
and let
Yeah, so that's part
others
of that.
find me. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
agree.
that's part of the
Yeah. Mm.
implications for family. What's that? Implications for family.
Oh,
Family
that was my
constellations.
question around, are there, and I think we've been doing it, elements around organizational work that have implications for doing family constellations,
Ah, got it.
Right.
not just for family constellations.
How we're gathering information. I think we've, you
And
know,
again, this is where we run into the fact that this is not a full organizational constellation training. We get as much information about this as we
we did a
can.
little bit on study group. We will arrange that maybe more occurs today. Cover the differences. Not one of those great words that has no possibilities.
Yeah.
What to use them for, what to use organizational constellations for.
Okay.
We got a
We did
sense for
some,
that.
Mm.
How to introduce it to others.
Did that today.
Gingerly.
Mhm.
The role of safety. I mean, facilitation and facilitator stance. Yeah, that's safety. This is that's the coin. That's how much available attention do I have, and how much choice do I have over where my attention goes? Does it go into my history or does it stay in the room? I need to choose that.
That was my question, and I remember the context was, it has to do with how to introduce as well. How do you make representatives that are in, maybe it's difficult for them to be open in front of other coworkers in their
Yes.
room? Yeah.
Oh, so I just bulldoze. Like literally.
You bulldoze what?
I do a little song and dance and constellations, and there's a field, and it's like, you know, iron filings, blah, blah, blah. Look, watch my hands. Here's a piece of paper. You're a representative.
Absolutely go fast.
I just go fast. I just gloss over it. Like, I don't, like,
You don't let them.
less
You
tips.
don't let them start to answer.
It's like the
ask
swish
one.
pattern, right? You
The
got to do
less-
it fast.
The less you give them time to cogitate about it,
Yeah.
The
the
better.
better you're off.
Yeah.
Let's just try this.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, here's a piece of paper. Let's just try it. Don't worry about it. That's exactly it.
Right.
And I have to, and as a workshop facilitator, they give me a little bit of credit. So I have to just steamroll them with my own sense of certainty and be unwavering.
And it has to be real. That can't
Oh,
be.
this is, yeah,
It
this
can't
is not
be like I
manufactured.
am pretending to be
I'm
confident.
just gonna fake it till
It's got to be
The,
right.
the faking until I make it
Mhm.
at that
a
level
point.
doesn't work
Yeah.
because our nervous system calibrates, you know, other people know.
Yeah.
So that's the piece where it is my sense of certainty that I assert on the room.
Mm.
Here's a piece of paper, do this, it's fine.
I had a question about the constellation we did yesterday, Jean V's. I'm not really sure how to ask this, but what made it organizational rather than family in a way? I mean, so we did, it was her and her voice and potential clients.
And her business and her clients, yeah.
So, right. No, I know it was about her business, but is that, I mean, like if I didn't know it was an organizational one, it could have been a family one in a way. So, okay.
I mean, in a way, they're all family.
Okay.
We
I'm
just
checking.
didn't add a parent. I mean, fundamentally at that level,
Yeah.
I mean, in any kind of coaching, the big difference was there wasn't a parent in the field.
Is there,
Because that becomes that weird transition from sort of what is executive coaching and what is therapy.
yeah,
As soon as you add the
It's
parent,
context.
everybody
Yes.
starts to think it's therapy.
right.
But we're doing therapy. I mean, it's like we call it coaching and we're not mentioning the parent, but
Well, I'm just trying to relate it to the things we've said about organizational, and maybe I don't need to fret about it so much. But there was, so it's definitely about power, you know, about stepping into power.
yes,
I don't get the burden part so much though.
the burden.
Well, you're saying that's usually sort of the frame that we can put on organizational.
Responsibility versus authority. Burden.
Yeah.
Burden versus.
Yeah, no. This was
power.
This was
This
more
is simpler.
executive coaching,
Okay.
as in contrast to say team dynamics, organizational dynamics,
Right.
yeah, between departments or business units.
Right.
Okay.
So clearly there's sort of the purely organizational development work,
Right. When you have a big organization, right?
or what we did for Guy. Yeah, some variation of what we did for Guy.
Yeah.
And then there's executive coaching,
Just
Yeah.
sole proprietor and
which is,
yeah.
is sort of, you know,
Mm.
what we did with the Jean-Guy.
Yeah.
And then there's therapy where we had parents and grandparents.
Okay.
Sort of, simplistic. Yeah, that would be sort of the spectrum.
Okay.
So we saw a pretty good resolution. So what we saw for Guy in an organizational context is, so the equivalent to what happened in the family constellation when the parents stand and the kid is in front and everybody's happy looking forward. That's sort of the archetypal resolution picture.
Yeah.
When everybody's sort of like, okay, I respect the people who have more power. I'm in support of them. I know where the journey goes and I'm in a good place. Yeah, that's for an organization. So the equivalent for an organization. Some variation on that. We talked about nested systems. Yeah, departments versus setting up individuals, or yeah. So we're what we're setting up usually are subsystems or nested systems, and not so much individuals. With you, we did a lot of individuals because that was about a specific team. So I think we're doing pretty good. Do we need a pee break?
I do. Yeah.
Yes.
This would be a good time for it.
Yeah.
The client, classic situation, a lot of time for the patients, but not much for the children, right? So the children had felt rather neglected by the father, and I was just being the father. And all of a sudden, the dogs they're just running around. And one of the dogs runs into a tent pole, and there's this yelp, and the dog's injured himself. And I'm turning to Sarah, who's the facilitator, and I'm saying, I think the dog's hurt. I think we really need to attend to the dog. I think the dog's really important. And the client says, that's just like Dad. Paying attention to the other hurt one rather than to the child who is the client. It was like, and I'm like, no, I'm just being Leslie and I'm worried about the dog. and then I went, no, maybe not. And the dog was fine. The dog was just fine. But it was astonishing, and that just kept happening for 3 days. The dogs just at one point the dog just came, run, and then just went into the middle, laid down, and everyone went, that's the dead child.
Well, how does that work with horses, though?
Horses, that's a whole nother conversation. I'll take you out to lunch sometime. But I do love that because they do. My cat actually participates in my constellations at home all the time.
Oh, nice.
What he likes to do is come in and move the cards because he bites them and chews them, and then when they're done, they're in the right place. I was like, oh, Dad's finally behind the child. Thanks, kitty.
Natural facilitator.
I need to go take a break. I know I was dealing with the communication.
So
Now
go
you
for
want
it.
to break.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We believe you.
I gave him
Okay, so back to our teacher. There we go.
So how are we going to enter practice? I know the temptation is really high for me to just take up more and more space. I'm clearly happy to do that. And
I really want to practice.
awesome. Do you want to practice facilitating by yourself, or you want to practice fully?
I don't know which one is scary. They both sound terrible. I know I want to do it, but I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's useful to do the one I have more resistance to, which is focus rotating. Or
That's a
Yeah.
really useful question, and the answer is in being kind. So what's the kind choice? So do you think about that? So who would like to do a piece of work? Clearly not Guy because he's busy.
You mean be a client?
Yes.
Well, I'm see if anybody else wants to.
I was a client yesterday. I'm hoping to have the opportunity to maybe facilitate today.
Okay.
I'll always be a client, but I don't want to always be a client.
Yeah.
Right.
How about you, Jeff? You've been quiet. What's happening for you? Taking it in? Are you in a good place? Are you in a good place just taking it in, or would you like to just stretch yourself a little and take up some space? Right. That's the kind choice. That feels kind. So I mean, I'm always, that's high on my list. Yeah? Being nice to ourselves, that's always a good start. And
Okay.
certainly there's an invitation to you to show up more if you want to. That's an open invitation, and you just, however that serves you best. Or you can have to do it. So, you want to do an organizational constellation?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, like, what arose for me was to do something with you and your boss, or something in your organization. So following the organizational theme of the weekend, and giving you an opportunity.
yeah, that'd be cool. I thought about what I would like and what would be fine. So I worry. This is another thing that I worry about, not only the appropriate issue, but also that if we go facilitate, then I would have a chance to lead, because I'll rely on you too much, or I'll before letting myself feel what wants to rise, I'll look at you and worry about checking in before, worry about being right.
So trust me. You don't have to worry about that.
Okay.
And today that we don't have time pressure,
Okay.
where I don't feel like, I'm in service of somebody else
Okay.
tracking.
Yeah, I would like to be you to be a service of me and be my support and not lead me too much.
Cool.
And help me when I need to, when
Okay.
you see that I'm checking out, I'm struggling, but not do that too much if you trust that I can do it. Okay.
Got it. So it's a little less than co-leading. What I'm hearing, what that translates to me is, I'll do less.
You do less, so
So you have more space.
So yeah.
Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, because my tendency would be to give less space to myself, and I would avoid that. Because then when I'm leading, I want to have you. I don't want to use you as a crutch.
Everything except the last part.
Okay, I want to
Training
use you as
wheels
a
are okay.
crutch. Okay.
Training wheels are okay.
Yes, true.
Okay.
But it's like,
Yeah. No. I know. So I won't let you get away with that.
okay, yeah. I'd be like, so what do you think?
Yeah. No, I
What do you
won't let
think
you
we
get away
should
with that.
do?
Is that a good agreement?
Yeah.
So maybe 80-20 co-lead.
Mhm.
80% of the energy is yours, and 20% is mine.
Maybe 60-40, but
You're awesome.
55, 45.
actually tapping into my 40%. That's the same way that you were reporting, like, oh, this is getting hot. Yeah, that's my 40%.
Okay. I can use hot and also.
So that seems like a reasonably clear agreement
Okay.
for something that's completely made up in the first place.
I will do that.
Humor always helps. So this is for you.
Okay.
And then your chair is for Amy.
I'm
Join us.
Christina. I'm Amy.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Would you like everyone to just go around and do their names one time?
Robbie
And
and
this was
Christina and
uh,
That's right, we rhyme.
You know, Irina is the one with the Russian accent. You know.
yes.
Yeah.
Irina.
Irina. It's just
Irina.
With a nice rolling R. Irina. You can actually, you have it halfway decent chance at pronouncing my name.
Oh, she does have an interesting pronunciation for you. Yeah.
That's American.
All right, here we go. So first, let's just establish.
Okay.
Remember from yesterday? So we're doing a mini constellation inside of the bigger constellation. And in a way, you're just a representative. So you're facilitating as dropping into a similar place that you drop into when you're a representative. You're just representing inside of our knowing field. And we just intentionally declare that. Yeah, take a deep breath, and then you.
So Christina, how we can be helpful?
Well, it sounds like I'm here to talk about. One of my many problems. My relationship with my boss. A few words, what's the main struggle? Well, I think when we were talking about micromanagement yesterday, I was like, ding, 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 you know, and I do feel like that's a problem between us. And the thing that made me like really decide that it's time to quit was this conversation we had, which didn't go well because, well, okay, so it was about
Just in like high level, you know.
She wanted me to take care of something that had to do with the bank, which I didn't have the proper authority to do. And she kept on trying to like get me to do all these roundabout things when what needed to happen was that she needed to actually take care of the problem because she was the only one they would come to.
So it sounds like she's giving you responsibility that was hers.
Yes, definitely. And I was in between a rock and a hard place, and like I was very frustrated, and she started blaming me for being frustrated. So then I was hurt.
Just stay with it.
And I had kind of a realization this morning, actually, about the micromanagement and how I might play a role in it.
So let's not go there.
Okay.
We have to stay. I feel like it's to take us away from
Mm-hmm.
the I have this desire to jump in and put her in a manager.
Perfect. I'm right there with you. And I would want to clarify first what the good outcome of the constellation.
More tools to work with her, or the clarity that it's not working.
Right now, you're feeling lack of resources to be able to handle it.
Yeah, maybe detangling myself a little bit emotionally to trigger.
To stay or work with her and have this emotional feel it too much.
Well, strangely enough, ever since I tried to quit, I didn't. We have been like uber friendly.
Nothing like a little threat to make things better.
Yeah. So it doesn't feel completely authentic, but it's like, okay, we're doing this now.
All right.
So now, I would want permission. In a different context, I would want permission that the untangling may require adding a parent. Is that okay?
I'm okay with it.
But that's just for the organizational context.
Okay.
Where I already
this
know
time-
that that's where it's going to go. If we de-trigger the situation, that means we're entering families here.
Okay.
And I would just get that permission. Obviously, in this context, not so needed.
Mm-hmm.
But in my role as an organizational constellator, that would be something that I definitely check
Mm-hmm.
because it's so blatantly obvious.
And you would go there.
Right?
In this, if we were executives right now, and
I would check, and then I would know whether I can or not.
Obviously, that wouldn't be a room of anybody who works with the executive or anything.
Exactly. Yes, that would be extremely unlikely.
So then, if it's organizational, you don't have permission, you still work with it, but you don't call it that? Is that-
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right.
And then I hold parent energy, and I do all sorts of, then it's just happening in my head.
Okay. So you're attending to it without making the person see it? Or...
Yes.
Okay.
And I make the manager say sort of parental things, but very carefully.
Right. Call the son or whatever. Yeah.
With the hope that that's what it works.
Yeah.
And that's how it's okay.
Bank shot. Bank shot. Like
Instead of
Oh
direct-
yeah, exactly. Yeah, nice metaphor.
Makes sense.
All right.
Okay.
Where are my
Cards.
cards?
I also have cards as well in the top drawer right next to you. Should have some in there.
There are cards and a pen. Sweet, thank you.
So just two.
Yes, we start.
Okay.
Who are your peers? Like, who else is reporting to that person?
two other women who actually don't work on site. So I don't really consider them. They're distant.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody at work you can talk to about this?
Yeah, there is someone that I talk to at work who has a different boss, but kind of similar problems, and we understand each other. Mhm.
Shared misery goes a long way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a fairly recent development, so that's nice.
Relevant.
No, I was just checking.
Okay.
for possible landmines. Clearing the surrounding edges.
Okay. I give, yeah, she gives
2 volunteers.
2 volunteers to represent.
Can I just let them set themselves? No? Okay.
So that was an interesting fact. That totally made my radar. How is Christina giving up her power?
Mm-hmm. That was part of my epiphany this morning.
And that was completely like, why would you ask that? Like, where is
Well,
the
just-
weekend or
Just to let you know, we have setups in a wide variety of formats here, including
just
letting them
go?
find their own place and not doing it blind. So
Oh, okay.
there's a lot of different formats that people have been playing with here and come from different lineages where it's done differently.
Awesome. But for me, that was totally like,
Oh, it's that
wow,
too.
she is given them power before it even starts.
Okay.
But just to notice.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that means or.
And she also placed us facing us instead of from behind. I was like, oh, that's not good. But
Oh, that didn't make sense.
yeah.
So
But
that's
it's okay. I mean,
that I wrote
it does
off
feel
as
different. Yeah.
that I wrote off as I don't know what the norms are in the training.
Yeah.
The first one stood out as like, oops, okay, note yourself. All right, and the positive.
What are you doing, Jenny?
No, I have so much to do. And never enough time. No one knows how it feels. But me. I'm alone. I'd like to connect with her. I feel like I'm supposed to be this way.
Is your attention on you?
Almost. She's just, there's this big cloudy bunch of responsibility and she's there, but I can't figure out if she's really helpful to me, what I'm going through.
How about you?
I feel watchful. Um, right now, she doesn't look so scary, but but before there was definitely kind of it was like a sparring energy. Like I almost felt like being in martial arts. Not that I do that, but I've seen this. I almost wanted to put my hands up. That's how it felt.
Self-defense.
Well, yeah, sort of like a,
Hmm.
if you feel like fighting, I'll fight you, but I'm just watching.
Should out at the OK Corral is what I was
Kind of,
thinking.
yeah. Yeah. It's like you might make a move and I'm ready. That's sort of how it felt.
Right. But it's so much bigger than you. What I feel is so much bigger than you.
Oh, okay. Well, fine.
So
That's from your.
not targeting you.
Yeah, and I'm not assuming you're going to do something. You just look like you might.
Well, yeah, just big energy around me.
Well,
Too soon.
no, yeah, no, not yet. I wanna, but have this instinct to put whoever she's intended, but then it's. I don't know if it's coming from her place or from here.
No, I think that is
It's like a
already
lesson.
in the space.
Okay.
Yeah, it's already obvious.
Yeah, it's like hello.
And there's one opening here that I notice around. It's not so personal. For this one, it's not so
Yeah.
personal.
So much bigger.
It's so much bigger. And I would actually want to make that explicit so that the other one gets that this OK Corral situation
Mm-hmm.
is her stance in life. Everything's a threat. So it's actually not personal. And to just track what happens to the other one when she realizes, like, oh, this is just a paranoid, a general paranoia, and it's actually nothing to do with you, kind of thing. And after that, I would totally go for checking who's who first, so that we know. Yeah. And then where we need to add some switcheroo kind of thing. Okay. And
So.
so actually, as a facilitator now, you will need to take up some space. Yeah. And offer the sentence and sort of
Okay.
part of the same that I did yesterday with, when you intrude with the representative. Your energy moves stuff, and you want to use that for your advantage.
Basically, you distracted now.
So it's just
I don't know how to
what
talk
happened?
because
So what happened? What's happening?
I just went off track.
Mhm.
I don't know. That energy in the room. Extra. I can't feel that focus anymore. I'm kind of exploring the edges and feeling desperate.
So our conversation already intervened, and the constellation just moved on.
Okay.
So we just
So
so now we
Just
just
go with it.
exactly. And for now, I would want to know who's.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
So Note to self.
What's going on here? Can you? What the heck? Mm-hmm.
A little relief. She's still here. Yeah, I can almost feel ability to close the distance, but not ready to. So
How are you?
I feel pretty comfortable. You know, I see her. She doesn't feel threatening.
So no more okay, Cora?
No, like I haven't forgotten, but I don't feel like on alert.
The no more.
How about for you?
yeah. It's very tentative feeling. Just we're not on the same wavelength. We don't tell each other much. Still distant, but yeah.
I feel willing for you to approach, as long as you're not going to try to hurt me.
Mhm. That hurts my feelings that I would be thought that.
Could you?
So now,
Okay.
you want to offer the something contradictory. I'm not here to hurt
I'm not here to hurt you.
Okay.
I'm gonna see if we can say it's been my experience that I had to protect myself. Or some sort of that. It was true.
Your judgment feels threatening.
Yes. Yes. Yes, your judgment feels threatening.
I hear you.
I don't need to hurt you.
No.
That feels easier.
How about I want to say I might have mistaken you for someone else.
When you remind me of someone else. I feel
Okay, feeling better. I feel like the urge to breathe.
So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
It's an entangle.
This is like a perfect, like for an organizational constellation,
Yeah.
like with a bunch of managers.
Mhm.
This would be a good place to leave it.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like, oh, I mistook you. I'm sorry, my mistake. Oops.
Yeah.
That would be already, yeah, clearly,
Great.
yeah, it has the impact we want. So that's good.
Yeah.
Right.
How's
And-
it for you?
That you
You've
can
seen
do
it
the
as
blended. There's.
Yeah,
options.
there's truth there. In kind of an annoying way.
You know we're going the right direction if it's annoying.
Can the rest of us ask who's who?
Yeah.
Or do you
You're
want us to
me.
be blind?
Oh, sorry, I just blew it.
Christina and
Okay.
Christina,
Christina and her manager.
that's what I figured.
So
Okay, so unpause and continue on. Why not?
Yeah, but sir, I was gonna ask you, how was it? And you said it was annoying. And would you like to go further?
Sure.
Thank
It sounds like you have a hit for something, so I'm interested in what that is.
you.
well, so do the family piece.
Well, Jeff, you're ready. Come here. Can I bring you? Could you stand behind me? And how are you doing?
No, I feel oh, I just wish she didn't move away. Yeah. I feel a little better when she's not so far away. Backed up, it's hard. So it's okay when the two of them are right side by side. Okay, it's better. Well, yeah.
So
Mhm.
for me, that would be a clear indication that we actually need to move her further away
Oh, okay.
so that we really differentiate the two rounds. So that the manager
entangle.
stops
She's
being a
still-
crutch one way or the other.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
He's like protective.
That
right?
manager needs to get out of that entanglement, and it's not helping. Even if it feels better, it's not helping.
Yeah.
So just moving her behind or something where it's like
Okay.
not part of the picture.
Give me a visual. I know it's gonna be uncomfortable.
Hmm.
How's that?
Who in your family is that?
I would say this is probably my dad because, interestingly, this one talked about the judgment piece, and actually, that's what I feel. I think that's his internalized voice in me.
So it felt like
Mhm.
I feel like asking, how you doing in my workspace?
Okay. Let's not do that.
Okay. Mm,
Clean up a little
he's
more.
here. I can't say
He's
that.
Here. Oh, he's your dad.
Mm. Something like it.
He's your dad.
My dad. Mhm.
I feel very stern and just somewhat disapproving.
Would you say hi to her? Like,
I don't want to say that.
oh, so it's gonna push.
It's like too familiar. Something like that. It's like, my dear. I don't want to say that. Okay. Try it anyway. Hi, my dear. The best way I know how to show my love. The best way I know how to show my love is by being stern and disapproving. By being stern and disapproving.
Mm.
That'll make you strong and do good in life. That'll make you strong and be successful.
Mm.
Does that make sense? From this place? Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Mm.
The irony here is that he had a big fall from success.
Mhm.
So it's like,
Mhm.
he's not one to say.
Mhm.
Could you tell her, I don't want you to end up like me?
Mhm.
I don't want you to end up like
Just having you here is making you feel lighter and capable. Especially after you said hi.
I like your attention.
I like your attention.
I miss that as a child.
I miss that as a child.
But it feels really good.
It does. There's not much else needed.
Yeah,
I agree.
it's just like this.
Mhm.
So,
That's why I was thinking.
so the impulse that arises for me is to just make that explicit. This, and for me, this would be like, a child asking the dad, would you be willing to support me going forward? Is it okay now? Like, whatever didn't happen, can we have this going forward?
Uh-huh. I have an impulse to bring Christine to be in this place.
I would want to check first
First to
about making that agreement, and then,
okay.
and then I'm right there with you. Yeah.
Does it matter that he's dead when we
No.
talk about going
No.
forward?
Yeah. No.
No.
Okay.
That's fine.
The dead are better at it.
resonating with the sentence you gave earlier. I want things to go well.
Sure. Thank you for being here. Take it from here.
I am.
I leave it with you.
Okay. Oh, she says it.
Just take it at how it feels.
So you grew up with that. As a child, he was legitimately angry. That's not a good thing for a child.
I believe you, but not to the point where I don't have to protect myself.
Did you say?
I still
From the possible disappointment, I still need to protect myself. From the possible disappointment, what do you? You still need to protect myself.
It's okay with you. It's okay with you.
My worldview is you need to protect yourself. You need to be tough enough to do that.
So maybe it's an alliance.
Being a good daughter.
Sounds like that.
Daughter's love for you.
I love you.
I'll be just as paranoid as you are.
Oh God. I'll be just as paranoid as you were.
I don't know if this is appropriate, but when I say it's not paranoia, they're really out to get you. We are not fucking around in this family.
He's becoming more lovable by the minute.
Direct channel.
You did my dad before.
Yeah. I love you.
I would have had more.
I wish.
You're supposed to be pulling me out of this.
I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. I'm not drowning, but I'm connected.
Yeah.
Can you actually feel it? Like the giving it back or forgiving?
I think it's baby steps. I mean, I'd like to say, yeah, it's done.
No. We're not pretending. We're like, okay, things. That's good.
All right, thank you.
So actually, sorry. Before we wrap it up,
Okay.
you want to stand in front of him and actually him have your back.
Yes.
Give him a little more space. I know there's a lot of
Yeah.
need. Yeah. Like, it's really nice to have a dad. But just give him a little more space. Good. That's it. That's it. Good. How does it feel to support your daughter in a different way? How does it feel to support your daughter in a different way? You feel concerned. I don't know if you were supporting her, but that path makes me feel concerned. Okay? But there's support. And they'll connect with the unit.
Well, I mean, this just feels like for now, you know? It's fine.
I'm not doing that.
And I have my own thing. And I have my own thing running.
I have my own thing running.
That's good to hear because that was like one of the things that was annoying about the earlier Constellation was that she was so like, I don't know, you're so paranoid. You know, the whole thing was, it was all one side.
I have my own.
Yeah.
I'm human.
I'm human. Yeah,
I do that.
I do that too.
It's not yours.
And that's not yours.
Thank you for saying it.
Let's have an adult relationship.
Let's have an adult relationship.
We have to deal with our own stuff.
Yeah, it feels better, like meeting in the middle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it turns out like this hierarchical thing. We're still just having an adult relationship.
Yeah.
Power is just an attribute. It's not personal. We get all confused about that. This is just an adult relationship.
I mean, she has more status.
Yeah. That's all.
Yeah.
And that's humanly endowed.
Yeah.
It's not that personal.
I understand that.
Yep.
Yes. That's it.
How was the 60-40 thing going?
Good. Yeah. No, you jumped in when I needed it, so I didn't feel like you were like taking my step. I guess that's what I was afraid of. And then I was projecting, but you know, like
That's
a male's trying to steal my territory. Anyway.
Like we do.
Do you, I guess I suppose, you know, I just like,
Sorry.
Are you open for some feedback?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, she did a nice shape.
yeah, or maybe let's check in. Did you? I feel like I want to check in with her.
All right.
Just in, like, how are you?
Good.
Good.
Yeah.
That was useful.
It was.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm sure you're okay.
I said that earlier. Like, you were awesome. Nice questions. Get the information you need. And the only other thing I have to say, like, you can own it more. Meaning, sort of, fundamentally, my pacing is a little different. And I don't, you know, that's just different styles, so that's neither here nor there. And I make my next move a little earlier. And I'm not sure whether that is part of learning and being a little hesitant, or whether it's just a difference in pacing. I don't know that. So I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah, there's a hesitation with wording. Like, I get like the feeling of a sentence or what it needs to do, but it's like rusty to come out in a nice way or.
Yeah, so there's some practice in that, of course. And I start with checking in with myself with what I would like, where I would like it to go next. And then out of that intention arises a sentence. I would like daughter and father to get a little closer. Okay, so that's the sweet words. Okay. You know, that sort of thing.
yeah. Yeah, makes sense. And two things that I've noticed as a facilitator that I did differently this time with the support and having it like a practice welcoming. I did feel like supported by the group in general, so it wasn't like you're gonna judge me. So I didn't feel. I usually have a need to like provide the solution, or I worked with Leslie on that too. That like the need to me, Irina, provide the solution, and it was much more of listening to this or this as of a guidance versus like I need to provide. Like that was much more. I was much more relaxed actually, and like, okay, it's gonna I'm feeling it. It's going well. It's deepening. Let's go with that. So that was nice. And another thing, I like how you kept client's goal in mind, which was about the manager, because I felt cool to end it when there was connection with that, and then you wrapped it in as a what you wanted, which is more manager, so helpful.
Awesome. Any other comments? Observations? Or let's say the other way. You've seen Irina work before, so any appreciations for her of what worked well, or what was working well?
I saw more vulnerability this time. I mean, I've always thought you are doing well, but it felt good that you took a risk, to do the co-facilitation.
One of the things I notice about your work, Irina, is that you actually do unusually skillful interviews for this stage of the learning. And I think that partly comes out of your previous training as a psychotherapist. But there's a way in which you're really in rapport and you're feeling the larger systemics, and that's coming through in the questions really clearly. So whatever, in NLP, we have this notion of a reference K, but if you can kind of notice the who you are when you interview, and then import that into all the rest of your facilitating, it will just, there's some sense of confidence you have in yourself, your sense of like, I know what I'm up to here.
Yeah, I've done. It's kind of like there.
But I've seen a lot of therapists not do that well, so it's not automatic.
It's not a gift.
No.
But you are translating, and it's the same stance and confidence and feel for the systemics that's just as useful once the constellation starts. So whatever you have in the interview, I invite you to see if there's some way you can anchor that through the rest of the facilitating, because it does feel like something shifts in your sense of performing once the constellation, quote unquote, starts. And if you can feel that more as an artificial divider, because the constellation starts as soon as you turn to the client and say, what are we up to today? How can I be of help or something? So I want to name that as your strength, and to notice it, maybe just bring it forward a little bit to all the other parts, so it's not quite so artificially, now we're doing the, I noticed that just in our learning, the moment of the constellation changes our energy with, exactly. Interview, constellation! And protect the client from me and my inadequacy or whatever I might not do right or whatever, that doesn't show up as much in the interview. So I just named that your interviewing is really, really skillful.
Yeah, I felt really supported by you in the interview, and connected and supported. And also when I was standing up here with you, even when you were like, oh, I feel like I'm getting a little emotional, I felt like that kind of made us more equals. So that was nice.
It's really a powerful facilitator.
Mhm.
disclosing
Mm,
what's happening for me.
mm,
Particularly like, in organizations that are also emotion phobic. Yeah.
mm.
Mm.
Like when I just name like, oh, wow, I'm tearing up. That's really sweet. The permission that creates in the space for
Yeah.
people to have an emotion is just
Mm.
significant. So as a facilitator, that's a really powerful move.
Mhm.
A reflection back into the system, into the space. And that too is just one of those, like it's a move. It's a leadership move you can use.
Even though I said
I
you're supposed
know.
to bail me out of
I'm
this,
like,
the feeling was still like camaraderie.
okay.
And it does a couple of other things as well. It says we're like, if the dead of the Holocaust are on the floor and you're getting teary-eyed, this is
Yeah.
appropriate. This
Yeah.
is an appropriate response to that, right? But also, if we can have the emotion and still keep facilitating,
Mhm.
we communicate to the room that the emotions are bearable and that they're not
Yes.
going to break us or make us fall
Mhm.
apart,
Mhm.
or we have to close them down because they're too dangerous
Yeah.
or
My
whatever.
emotion, and I'm still safe.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Emotions are safe. Yeah.
How did you phrase it? Was it emotions are variable?
Bearable.
Bearable.
Got it. Okay, got this.
Yeah, and workable. And I can keep facilitating even though like I'm really opening my heart to this tragedy right now.
Or
Yeah.
that's threat, like explicit threat.
Right,
Yeah,
fear.
in the situation of
things
fear.
are-
And it's like, okay.
Yeah, I've done that like just in the moment, just gone like, I'm getting a little scared right now. This is getting kind of scary. What else do other people think? And they can all go, yes, I'm feeling scared, but now I'm not feeling so scared because we just named,
Mhm.
yeah. So yeah.
All right. Awesome.
Thank you.
One of the things that occurred to me as we were sort of looking for the right sentences and so forth is the difference between performance feedback and impact feedback. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. So performance feedback is, you're doing great, you're awesome. That was like clearly performance feedback, which is utterly, like there is some agreement that I'm the teacher, Irina is the student, I have the authority to actually evaluate that it's going well. And therefore it means something. But most of the time, particularly in adult relationships, that's not appropriate. We just don't make that distinction. So in the adult relationship as peers, we're providing impact feedback. When you do that, when you say that, I'm getting fearful, paranoid, toughen up, whatever that is. Yeah, it's like I'm providing feedback about the impact on me. I'm getting scared. And in constellations, when we're providing sentences, we want to be really, like, it's a great way of stating what is, but maintaining ownership. So we did that a little bit here, yeah, where, boy, when did that show up? I just lost it. So, maybe we'll come back in a moment. But it is sort of when we're coming up with what sentence sounds right. That's one of the things we want to keep in mind, particularly later on between the manager and Christina. Like impact feedback now becomes really important. Like impact on me. Like okay, now I'm feeling safer with you. But you really make sure who's owning. And it's useful for me in my ear, to start thinking about like, okay, how can I phrase this and still be really clear about the sense of ownership of the emotion one way or the other. I wish I still remember.
You'll remember at lunch or something.
Do you mean when you give sentence? You
Yes.
think about that.
How I phrase the sentence.
So
Yeah,
that-
I start to use that in the back of my head. I'm feeling great. That's sort of, am I evaluating? Passing judgment of some kind?
I see.
Or am I just sharing and disclosing my experience? That's a different way of acknowledging what is. And the way the sentences come across indicate either, like sort of indicate order. In the peering relationship, I just share my experience. When there's a parent-child relationship, we're doing more evaluation, where the parent is in the authority position.
Mhm.
Does that make sense? Is that helpful?
We're using that concept to formulate sentences in the moment.
To
So
double
they
check.
so they more impact than.
Well, yes. I mean, a lot of what we're doing in Constellation is disentangling ownership of experience.
Mm.
But if I understand you correctly, the judging evaluating position works when you're talking about a parent-child dynamic.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I only use it when it's positive.
Uh-huh.
I mean, sometimes, yeah, negative judgment has to be named, but that's then just to really like, that's a pretty tough, like a pretty tough move. And negative evaluation, like you're bad or you're not good enough, or I mean that is.
You're paranoid like me.
Yeah.
For instance.
Yeah, I thought of that one.
Yes.
That's more sharing of experience. That was not judging data. That was owning your own experience.
It's an interesting perspective. I don't know if I totally would have thought that this situation was based on my paranoia. It's something to
I
consider.
mean, that's a provocative word
Yeah.
for
Yeah, it is.
having to fend off danger.
Right.
And in the
That's
beginning of the
in the
constellation, there was a relatively generalized sense of having to fend off danger beyond the manager, and the manager was just in the field of vision.
Mm-hmm.
And sort of out of provocation, I amped it up and called it paranoia. I'm pretty sure you're not
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't be in this chair if you truly were paranoid.
Yeah.
But he was kind of paranoid.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah, I
Yeah.
believe you. So you have done a good job at buffering the impact,
Yeah.
but you're still fending off danger in a sort of a generalized sense.
Mm.
So that's what I was calling attention to.
Mm.
In a provocative and a little bit simplistic, cartoonish way, so that it doesn't get lost in the niceties.
Mm.
Yeah, but also not confused in the harsher words.
That's part of the calibration to check when is that kind of exaggeration useful and in service of making it clear, yeah, and when am I just pouring gasoline on the fire?
Right, because I'm sitting here thinking, oh, I have a new thing to think about. A new problem to think about.
to solve.
Yeah.
Need a help group.
and really just
Mm,
all that's called for is loving your dad's paranoia.
mm,
And you don't have to do it anymore.
mm.
Or at least saying yes to it.
No,
Being
Well,
loyal,
no.
being loyal to,
loving it.
Loving.
loving
Yes.
it. Yeah.
Do we have to love everything about our parents?
Mm,
No, you can make yourself miserable all you want.
mm,
Not loving everything about our parents means being miserable.
mhm. Not completely.
That's
Accepting
one
and loving.
cartoonish way of being provocative.
Mhm.
He's just being frog.
No,
I
I
mean-
I'm pretty serious.
It's back to the
Life
balance
gets a
reality.
lot better when you love
Mm,
everything about it.
mm.
It makes stuff so much easier.
Something to think about.
Mhm.
And I don't know if this helps, but you're not saying the word like or approve.
Oh, not like
Yeah.
not in approving.
This is
Oh
love.
no! This is not approving.
Like
I
accepting.
understand.
Yeah.
So what's the difference?
Accepting is a
between-
different word than love.
I know, but he's saying it to be provocative. I'm trying to help translate.
So it is a difference between like accepting, agreeing
well.
to it, like
Sorry.
yes, you
Just
like this. It's a next step.
So
Love is the next step.
Mm,
agreeing is consenting, deeply consenting
Mhm.
is good enough. Loving really helps. Like it gets even sweeter. Like consenting is good.
Yeah,
That'll do the
I don't know what you mean by love. It's like
Yeah,
such
I'm
a-
taking it literally. I'm not thinking that you're like doing some big game here.
Like, love is just such a
Open-hearted warmth. Like, oh wow, that was fun.
Well, and the constellation insight is that we are actually already doing it anyway. We just forgot that we're loving our father's paranoia or her mother's absence, or it's actually not something we have to layer on top.
Yeah, or this weird way of finding that sentence of like, you know, that was my way of showing my love. That too is pretty universally true. Yeah, fucked up,
mm,
abuse, craziness. That was the best way they knew how to express their love. That's a really horrible bottom line, but it's kind of how it went.
Would you use it with abuse as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, gingerly. I mean, at that point, you're pouring your likelihood that you're pouring gasoline on a fire is pretty high.
Yeah.
So you
For
want
the
to
client.
for the
they couldn't,
client, yes. So you want to do that. You want to have a sense for the edge of that.
Yeah.
You can't push that too hard. But in myself, that's what I hold.
mm.
And this gets us back to the orders of helping that we talked about, I think on the first weekend,
Mhm.
around not being in judgment of your client's family and what is our stance as facilitators. It's very hard to be in judgment of our own families and not be in judgment of similar patterns in our clients' families. And this is not anything we do 100%. I mean, God knows. But that's that orders of helping stuff from Bert Hellinger, that beautiful stuff. I might resend that out. It's challenging stuff.
It is part of our available attention.
Yeah.
I might review the orders of helping a little bit.
Mhm.
You've seen that article from Bert Hellinger.
Off the top of my head, I don't quite know what you're referring to. But
Okay.
So it's 12:30. I'm half tempted doing just a little riff on internal family systems as an intro, then go for lunch and let that sort of percolate,
Okay.
and then splash around that territory this afternoon.
Sounds good.
Works for me.
Fair?
Mhm.
So, I mean, it showed up for us as a way of thinking about structural constellations. But it is squarely in the territory of family constellations. Or maybe more directly, squarely in the territory of healing trauma.
So are you presenting it as work of Richard? I think his name's
Richard Schwartz.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's the same.
Same thing. So it's not, so I just wanted to preface it as a way of, like, this is not what I do in organizations. Sometimes a little bit under the radar, but carefully. This is therapy territory. Okay? So fundamentally, the idea is that there's a senior consciousness in all of us that is actually quite a spiritual place. Like, the senior consciousness remains unharmed by all life experience. The senior self doesn't experience trauma. It knows about it, but doesn't hold it. And in order to make that possible, we kind of outsource it to parts. It's fundamentally sort of our internal family is a bunch of parts. The part of me that wants to go for lunch, and the part of me that wants to learn more, and the part of me that needs to go to the bathroom, and there are lots of parts going on. And most of them we don't actually care about or pay attention to. Like 99.999%, in fact, I don't ever pay attention to. There are a few parts that really matter. Fundamentally, there's one set of parts that we call protectors, which are managers on one side and firefighters on the other. And their job is to protect a really hurt and vulnerable part of us. And most of these vulnerable parts are so hurt that we don't even know about them. They're cave dwellers. They're really out of our consciousness. And what we know is our managers, they keep us safe. They keep the exile safe proactively. So nothing's going on, and they're just constantly on duty to make sure the exile doesn't get triggered. So a lot of inner critic stuff is our managers. Behave better, be nice, don't upset the apple cart, kind of low voices. Yeah, those are the voices of managers. Now, every so often, the exile actually gets triggered. Somebody gets us and we're hooked. And now firefighters enters the scene. Like, okay, it's too late. We're getting angry, we're running, we're fighting, we're screaming. Yeah, the firefighter, like the exile is rumbling, unbearable. We're moving in. Alarms and all. Sirens, you know, flashing lights. We're on the job. So most of our presenting issues are either managers or firefighters. Yeah, I eat too much because I do emotional eating, I gain weight, I want to lose weight. That's a manager.
Who's a firefighter, you said?
After I'm triggered, I have strategies to help me manage my lack of safety.
So eating would be a firefighter or manager?
Eating probably started as a firefighter and then
Okay.
became a manager.
Triggered, I need to contact, or addictions would be.
Addiction.
Like, okay.
Addictions usually start as firefighters. I do something because it makes me feel better when I am triggered. And then over time, I rely on it so that I proactively do it before I'm even triggered. And now I'm addicted.
What is the meaning in this context? Because I get the parts on the bottom, but why are they called exile parts? I didn't quite connect.
We exile.
Okay.
Put them aside so we don't have to notice.
Okay.
We excluded them out of our conscious awareness. So where the experimentation goes for the afternoon is to set up a protector, like a self, the protector, and the exile. So the protector is always the presenting issue. I want to do less of X or more of X. And to just start recognizing that anything we do has this positive intention baked in. And the big piece of, like, the weird thing here is that the more I polarize against an internal part, mostly a manager, I don't like when I procrastinate. I'm really bad. Oh, well, I should not procrastinate so much. I hate that I'm procrastinating. Yeah, the more I push away my procrastination, this is what I'm paying attention to. That's what I notice. That's the presenting issue. That's probably a manager. I'm avoiding something. The more power I give that protector, the more I stabilize the system.
Will you resist persists?
Yes. So loving my procrastination changes the game dramatically. Oh, this part of me that is procrastinating, that gets me to procrastinate, is really trying hard to do something for me. Wow, how much energy goes into procrastination, and the fact that, like, how much energy goes into keeping me safe? So what's the worst thing that could happen if I'm not procrastinating? Oh, I get visible, I have success, good shit happens, unbearable. Whatever, you know, I mean, that becomes then part of the discovery of, yeah, what are we exiling, not paying attention to, la 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 la. Yeah, and we're constantly trying to fix problems at this level.
Gone in an eating regimen of some sort,
Dieting.
or yeah.
So is it just like a family constellation version of working with parts?
In a weird way, it's that simple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an NLP reference for people not in NLP. Just
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, this is so in NLP, just as a sidebar, we did the parts auditorium and we worked with parts.
Yeah.
All that applies, it's just structured versus this loosey-goosey, invite parts, have a conversation, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Here, there's a clear structure.
Okay.
We're talking to a projector. We have to appreciate the hell out of the projector so that we get permission to get access to the emotion we're actually protecting against. and then we make friends here. And then the whole thing evaporates.
Mm.
That destabilizes the structure, and then something different can occur. When I ran into that, I was really bothered by how simple it is. Like, this is so pedestrian.
Mhm.
I'm a model geek. I like complexity. Like, this offends my sensibility.
Right?
And it blows my mind. Like, this simplicity
Mm.
has blown my mind.
In terms of the impact of working with people.
Or myself. No, myself. I mean, I get feedback from others, but no, mostly myself.
Okay.
The kinds of things that I've been pushing up against,
yeah,
and being really unhappy about.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
So it really can help with, yeah, like you want to start a business, but you are doing everything else but working on your website or.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, it also references back to the conversation you were doing before about available versus fixed attention.
Yes.
So if fixed attention is one of the functions of protectors, the last thing
Everything below here is fixed attention.
right, but the last thing we want to do is be in resistance to it. We want to appreciate the function of that fixed attention to be taking care of the parts underneath, rather than slipping into the situation of, oh my God, I'm doing too much fixed attention right now. Bad facilitator.
Exactly.
I need more of it.
You just anointed a new manager.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
Manager of the manager.
Exactly. You just delegated.
Sounds like the Gap Ball, 15 layers of.
You just delegated, yeah, a new manager being critical about fixed attention. Yes, that doesn't help. Any other questions? That's pretty clear.
I am curious why. Do you know why it's called internal family systems? Because it doesn't.
So,
I in that I hear the internal mother, the internal father, the internal inner child. That's the
Yes.
sort of thing that comes to my
Yes.
mind. So
Dick Schwartz, by training, is a marriage and family counselor who did a lot of like working with families.
right, family systems therapist.
Yeah. And he just started to use all those family systems tools in the context of having an internal conversation. And then he sort of amped that up and said, like, oh yeah, when I have a conversation with myself, there's a senior self, or like ideally, I mean, there are a lot of parts talking to each other. That's secondary emotions. When we're in secondary emotion, it's one part talking to another part. History talking to itself. When we're in primary emotion, we are actually having access to that senior self, having a conversation with the part of me that wants to procrastinate. Oh, and I can love the hell out of that part. I don't actually need to polarize. Who's the I in that sentence?
The self. The higher self.
The higher self.
Yeah.
But most of us have sort of parts that look like self or act like self. We're not actually, like, when we're in secondary emotion, we're not in connection with that senior self.
The protector's in the driver's seat. So.
Some manager, some protector, yeah, is in the driver's seat, making sure we're safe, working hard. And so suddenly you notice, like, oh, okay, so like for me, I'm going to bed too late. Just staying up, and I'm a night owl, and I have a whole story about it. And I'm tired in the morning. Okay. Wow, why am I doing that? So who's keeping me up? Like, what's in it? What's in it for you? And now I can have a conversation, and who's the I that's having a conversation with the part that wants to stay up late? I don't know, but it really helps having a sense for that. And in constellations, I mean, at the end of a constellation, we have provided access for our client to that experience of self. It's this quiet, calm, in my body, I'm here, I'm standing on my 2 feet kind of place. It's weird. It's like there's no real agenda either. Like the self doesn't have to be particularly grand or this or that or the other thing. That's a part. There's a part that wants to have success and status and a big car. And the self doesn't give a rat's ass. Yeah. So at the end of a constellation, what we're providing is a reference experience of being in self. And that's a bizarrely neutral place where I'm really good, period. And in a way, it's an invitation to just spend as much time there as possible. And then life can happen, and I can react to it, and I like or I don't like what happens, and I do something about it, and yeah, I extract myself from the situation, or I do more of it. It's just, these are all choices. But the self is sort of bizarrely neutral about like, look at that. Is that hidden spots? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cool. All right. Good enough for now?
Yeah, I think the spot that needs to be hit.
Some stomach spot.
The protector that manages making sure I have enough food.
Yeah. Awesome. So we're meeting back here at 1:20.
2:20? Yeah.
1?
2.
2:20. Otherwise, it's just a half hour.
Yeah, right.
Never mind. Take that back.
Sammy, if someone